Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at how family roles have been changing in recent years.
Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah.
It's huge. We're going to be talking about those big cultural shifts that are happening, the economic forces at play.
And how it affects you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you the listener, how this is impacting your life. And get this, these changes are opening up some pretty incredible opportunities, but also bringing a whole new set of challenges.
Which is kind of the story of our times, isn't it? I mean, for so long we had such fixed ideas about what men and women were supposed to be doing within the family unit.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like if you think about those old sitcoms from way back when, you've got dad coming home from work at the factory to a perfectly cooked dinner.
And mom, busy cleaning the house and taking care of the kids.
Exactly. It was like a formula, right?
Totally a formula. But it wasn't just a coincidence that it played out that way. There were deeper reasons for it.
Oh, yeah. I totally want to hear about that. What were those reasons?
Well, these roles were totally shaped by what was going on in society at the time and the economic realities, too.
Right. I mean, everything's connected.
Think about the post-war period, for example. The economy was booming, and the image of the nuclear family became like this ideal.
Supported by a single income.
Yeah, exactly. That was the image being pushed, even though it wasn't the reality for everyone.
Okay, so that was then. But fast forward to now the 21st century, and things look totally different.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We're seeing this huge shift towards a more, like, equal approach where both partners are sharing the financial burden and the responsibilities at home.
Definitely. And this shift is happening because of a lot of different factors.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, women are way more educated now than ever before.
Which is awesome.
It is, and that means they're entering the workforce in record numbers.
Right.
Plus, and let's be honest here, in a lot of places, one income just doesn't cut it anymore.
No, it's not enough.
Most families need two incomes to make ends meet.
Okay, so it's like the old playbook got tossed out.
Yeah, it's gone.
And we're making it up as we go along.
Yeah, we're improvising.
Which is kind of exciting, right? It means more families are breaking free from those old expectations.
It is exciting. And they're creating a new dynamic, a new setup that actually works for them.
I love that. So tell me more about this new dynamic.
Well, dual income families are becoming the norm. And that means we need more flexible work arrangements and, shared parenting.
Right. It's not just about who brings home the paycheck anymore.
Exactly. It's about who's doing the grocery shopping, who's picking up the kids from soccer practice, who's making sure the house doesn't fall apart. It's a team effort.
It's a team effort. I love that. Okay, so help me understand this. We've got these massive changes happening in families, but what does it actually mean for, our listener out there?
That's a big question, right?
Yeah, how does this impact their lives?
Well, for one thing, it means the younger generation, the folks growing up in this new world, they aren't bound by those old limitations anymore.
Like they're not stuck in those old roles.
Yeah, exactly. They're seeing a world where mom might be the CEO and dad's the one baking cookies for the school bake sale.
I love that.
It's a whole new ball game.
So they have more freedom to chase their dreams no matter what their gender is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's got to be empowering.
It is. But it's not just about individual ambition.
Yeah.
It also changes how they see relationships and responsibilities.
So it's like a ripple effect. It changes everything.
Totally. It opens doors to higher education and better careers, especially for women.
Right.
But it also shapes their values and skills.
Okay, I'm really curious. Now, give me some specifics. How does this actually play out in their lives?
Okay, so imagine you grow up watching your parents share responsibilities equally.
Okay.
You learn about collaboration, compromise, mutual respect.
Right. You see it in action.
Exactly. And those are valuable skills, not just for romantic relationships, but for any kind of partnership, colleagues, friends, even family members.
So it's like these changing family dynamics are shaping the leaders of tomorrow.
I think so.
It's not just about who does the dishes. It's about building a more fair and cooperative world.
Right, exactly. And that's why I think it's worth thinking about how these changing family roles have affected your own life.
Yeah.
Think about your upbringing, your current family situation. Has it been like those traditional roles, or have you experienced something different? And how has that shaped your own views and values?
That's such a good point. It really makes you realize how much things have changed, even in just one or two generations.
Yeah.
But let's be real for a second. Like with any big change, there are going to be some challenges along the way, right? It can't all be sunshine and rainbows.
You're so right. While this move toward more balanced roles is overall a good thing, it doesn't come without its hurdles.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What are some of the downsides we need to think about?
Well, one of the biggest ones is something called role ambiguity. When those traditional lines get blurred, It can be hard to figure out who's supposed to be doing what.
Right, because the old rules don't apply anymore.
Exactly. And that lack of clarity can cause conflict, misunderstandings, or even make people feel inadequate.
Like everyone's trying to figure out their place in this new world, and sometimes it feels like there's no map.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the never-ending struggle to find that work-life balance, which is hard enough even in more traditional families.
Oh, tell me about it. Especially with technology blurring the lines between our work life and our personal life. It's like they're merging into one big blob.
Right. So imagine both partners have demanding jobs, trying to juggle those responsibilities with housework, childcare, and trying to squeeze in some time for yourself. It's a recipe for burnout.
It's like you're on a treadmill going a million miles an hour just trying to keep up with everything.
Yeah.
But it sounds like even though we're making progress, those old expectations about gender roles haven't completely vanished, have they?
Unfortunately not. While many societies are embracing these changes, there are still some pockets of resistance, especially in more conservative communities. And that pressure to conform to those traditional models can create tension and conflict, especially for families who are trying to do things their own way.
It's like this push and pull between the old and the new. And it's not always easy to reconcile those different viewpoints. But it's not just about external pressures, right? This can also bring up some internal struggles, like you mentioned earlier.
That's right. For some people, this shift away from traditional roles can trigger a kind of identity crisis.
Whoa, I never thought about it like that.
If someone's sense of self was really tied to being the breadwinner or the homemaker, stepping outside of those roles can be really disorienting.
It's like their whole world is shifting.
Exactly. It can feel like they're losing a part of themselves and they have to figure out who they are in this new context.
And that's got to be tough.
It is. It can be incredibly challenging emotionally and psychologically, and it really highlights the need for understanding communication and support, not just within families, but from society as a whole. It's not just about adapting to new roles, it's about redefining what family means.
Wow, that's deep. So how can we as a society do a better job of supporting these changes and creating a more inclusive environment for all families?
That's the key question, isn't it? We need to create a culture that values and supports different family structures.
Right, like acknowledging that there's no one right way to do things.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. We need to advocate for policies that help working families. Things like affordable childcare, flexible work arrangements, and paid parental leave.
Okay, so it's about practical support.
Yeah, but it also goes beyond policy. It's about challenging those lingering stereotypes and promoting understanding and acceptance.
It's like we're rewriting the rules of the game, and everyone needs to be on board for it to work.
Exactly. It's not just about changing laws, it's about changing hearts and minds.
It's about creating a world where everyone feels valued and supported, no matter their gender or their role in their family.
Yes, that's the goal.
This has been such a fascinating conversation already, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right? There's so much more to unpack.
We've explored how historical factors shaped those traditional family roles. We've seen this shift towards a more equal approach, and we've even dived into the challenges and opportunities that come with these changes.
It's a complex issue with a lot of layers.
We've talked about the individual level, the family level, and even the societal level, which makes this conversation so much richer.
I agree. It's about recognizing that this evolution of family roles is a reflection of bigger social shifts, and it's impacting every aspect of our lives.
Totally, and it's an ongoing process, As we move forward, it'll be fascinating to see how families continue to adapt and redefine themselves in this ever-changing world.
That's an excellent point. The conversation doesn't stop here. There's so much more to discuss, so what are we waiting for? Let's keep this deep dive going.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
If changing family roles are really a reflection of these bigger societal shifts, what does it tell us about the future of family and relationships? That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, are we headed towards a world where those traditional ideas of marriage and family become a thing of the past?
It's a big question.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about.
It really is, but one thing that seems pretty clear is that the traditional model of the nuclear family with its very defined roles is becoming less and less common.
Yeah, we're seeing so many different family structures these days. Single-parent households, blended families, same-sex couples, raising children. The landscape is definitely changing.
For sure.
It's like the definition of family is expanding right before our eyes.
And with that diversity comes a need for more flexibility and adaptability. The old one-size-fits-all approach to family just doesn't work in today's world.
So if we're moving away from that cookie-cutter model,
Yeah.
what does that mean for relationships in the future? Are we going to see a complete departure from traditional institutions like marriage?
That's a question that sociologists and anthropologists are grappling with right now.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It's possible that we'll see a continued shift away from those traditional institutions and a greater emphasis on individual choice and personal fulfillment within relationships.
Like people are saying, hey, we don't need a predetermined script. We can write our own story.
Exactly. Relationships might become more fluid, more adaptable to the changing needs and desires of the people in them.
So less about fulfilling societal expectations and more about creating partnerships that truly work for the individuals involved.
Yes, it's about recognizing that people change and evolve, and relationships need to be able to evolve with them.
That's a pretty radical idea when you think about it. It challenges centuries of tradition and societal norms. It's like we're breaking free from the chains of the past.
It is, but it also opens up some incredible possibilities. Imagine a world where relationships are built on genuine connection, mutual respect, and shared values, rather than on predefined roles and expectations.
So it's about finding someone who complements you, who challenges you to grow, and who supports you on your journey. It sounds amazing, like a true partnership where both people feel seen, heard, and valued for who they are. But can we really achieve that? I mean, we're still battling those ingrained societal expectations and stereotypes. It's like we take 2 steps forward and then 1 step back.
You're right, there's still work to be done. We need to keep challenging those outdated norms and promoting greater understanding and acceptance of different ways of doing family and relationships.
So it's about expanding our definition of what's normal and creating space for all kinds of relationships to flourish. And it sounds like communication is key here.
Absolutely. Open and honest communication is essential, both within families and in society as a whole. We need to have these conversations, share our experiences, and learn from each other.
So it's about being willing to listen, to empathize, and to try to understand where other people are coming from. Even if we don't agree with them, we can still respect their perspective and try to find common ground.
Exactly. And that includes being willing to challenge our own assumptions and biases. We all have them, but it's important to recognize them and be open to changing our minds.
It's about stepping outside of our comfort zones and embracing the unknown. It's about recognizing that growth and change can be uncomfortable, but they're also necessary for progress. So how does all of this play out for the younger generation? I mean, they're growing up in a world that's already so different from the one we experienced.
It's interesting because for them, this more egalitarian approach to family and relationships is often just the norm. They've grown up seeing their parents share responsibilities, challenge stereotypes, and prioritize open communication.
So they're not as bound by those traditional expectations. They have more freedom to define their own roles and create relationships that align with their values. It's like they're writing their own script, just like you were saying earlier.
Precisely. They're more likely to see relationships as partnerships built on equality and mutual respect. They're looking for someone who's going to be their equal, their teammate, their partner in crime.
And that's got to be a positive thing, right? I mean, those are the foundations of any healthy relationship, regardless of its structure. But even though they have more freedom, it doesn't mean it's all smooth sailing.
You're absolutely right. Young people still face challenges navigating this new landscape. They're still figuring things out, just like we are.
Like what sorts of challenges? I'm curious to know what they're struggling with.
Well, for one thing, they're often trying to balance their own aspirations and goals with the demands of a relationship. They want to have fulfilling careers, travel the world, and pursue their passions, but they also want to find love and build a life with someone special.
Especially in today's world where there's so much pressure to achieve, to be successful, to have it all.
Yeah.
It's like you're constantly bombarded with messages about what you should be doing with your life.
Exactly. And they might also face pushback from older generations or from societal expectations that haven't quite caught up with the times. Like they're trying to break free from the mold, but the mold keeps trying to pull them back in.
So it's like they're pioneers forging their own path, but sometimes without a clear map or guidebook. It's exciting, but it can also be pretty daunting.
That's a great analogy, and that's why it's so important to provide them with support, guidance, and open-minded perspectives. We need to be there for them, to listen to them, and to help them navigate the complexities of modern relationships.
We need to create spaces where they can have honest conversations about relationships, where they can explore different options, and where they feel empowered to make choices that are right for them. It's about giving them the tools they need to build healthy, happy, and fulfilling relationships, whatever those relationships may look like.
I couldn't agree more. We need to equip them with the knowledge and skills to navigate the complexities of modern love and relationships. We need to teach them about communication, compromise boundaries, and self-respect. We need to help them understand that relationships are a journey, not a destination, and that there will be bumps along the way.
It sounds like the future of family is going to be less about conforming to a set model and more about creating a tapestry of diverse and evolving relationships. It's about recognizing that there's beauty in the differences, that there's strength in diversity, and that there's power in embracing change.
That's a beautiful way to put it. A tapestry woven from threads of equality, respect, communication, and a willingness to embrace change. It's a tapestry that's constantly evolving, constantly being woven and rewoven as we learn and grow and adapt to the ever-changing world around us.
And what does this tapestry look like? Well, that's a question for each of us to explore, both individually and as a society. It's about having those tough conversations, challenging those outdated norms, and being open to new possibilities.
Yeah.
It's about creating a world where everyone feels loved, accepted, and valued, regardless of their relationship status, family structure, or personal choices.
That's the beauty of it. The future of family is still being written, and we all have a role to play in shaping it. We have the power to create a world where love and connection thrive, where families of all shapes and sizes are celebrated, and where everyone feels like they belong.
We've been having this really insightful conversation about how family roles are changing. It's like we're in the middle of a huge cultural shift.
We are.
But with any big change, there are always going to be some bumps in the road, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We've talked about challenges like, role ambiguity and trying to find that work-life balance. But there's another area we haven't really touched on yet.
What's that?
The potential for conflict between generations.
Oh, yeah, different generations having different ideas about family.
Exactly.
What?
They can create a lot of tension.
I hadn't really thought about that. How does that tension actually play out in families?
Well, imagine this. You have grandparents who grew up with very traditional ideas about gender roles, the classic breadwinner, dad and stay-at-home mom.
Right, the old model.
Then their kids grow up and they embrace a more equal approach, sharing responsibilities more evenly.
Okay.
And then their grandchildren are raised with even more fluid ideas about family and relationships where gender roles are almost irrelevant.
Wow, that's a lot of change to happen in a pretty short period of time.
It is.
It's no wonder there might be some friction between the generations.
Exactly. It's like they're speaking different languages when it comes to family.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we even start to have these conversations in a way that's respectful and productive, especially when we're talking about deeply held beliefs?
It's tough, right?
It's really sensitive.
It really comes down to communication, empathy, and a willingness to really listen to each other's perspectives without judgment.
Without immediately jumping in and saying, you're wrong.
Exactly. We have to recognize that everyone's experiences and beliefs are shaped by the time they grew up in and the culture they were raised in.
Right, like their background.
It's about understanding that there's no one right way to do family, and what worked for one generation might not work for another.
So instead of criticizing or dismissing someone else's viewpoint, we need to try to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. It's about remembering that even though we might disagree, we're all part of the same family, and we all want what's best for each other.
It's about finding that common ground, even if it's hard.
Exactly. It's about having those tough conversations with patience and compassion.
It sounds like these conversations about changing family roles are really just a small part of a much bigger picture.
I think so.
It's about how we, as a society, approach change and adapt to new ways of thinking.
And learn to respect different ways of life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about moving away from those rigid, outdated models and embracing a more inclusive and adaptable approach to relationships and family.
It's about celebrating the fact that everyone's different and there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Exactly. There's no one right way to do love, family, and relationships.
It's about recognizing the value of those differences and understanding that what really matters is the love, respect, and support we give each other.
Regardless of how our families look or function.
Beautifully said. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to remember that this evolution of family roles isn't just about adapting to change. It's also about creating a better future.
Absolutely. A better future for ourselves and for the generations that come after us.
Now, that's an inspiring thought. Could you say a little more about that?
Well, think about the potential benefits of these shifts. More balanced roles mean more opportunities for everyone, no matter their gender.
That's huge.
It means breaking free from those limiting stereotypes and letting people pursue their passions and contribute to society in meaningful ways.
And we're already seeing those positive changes happening, right?
Yeah.
More women are in leadership positions, more men are involved in childcare, And there's a growing sense of shared responsibility in families.
Exactly. And ultimately, these changes lead to happier, healthier individuals, stronger relationships, and a more fair and just society for everyone.
So it's a win-win all around.
I think so.
But it's not going to happen overnight, right? It's an ongoing process.
Absolutely. It's a journey, not a destination. But I'm optimistic each generation brings new perspectives and new ideas. And as long as we keep having these conversations and challenging those old norms, we'll keep moving in the right direction.
Creating a world where families are more diverse, more equal,
Right.
and more fulfilling for everyone.
That's the goal.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this conversation? What's the one thought you want them to ponder?
I want them to remember that family isn't a fixed idea. It's a living, breathing thing that changes over time.
I love that, a living, breathing thing.
Let go of those rigid definitions and embrace all the different and evolving relationships that make up our lives.
That's beautiful. And to our listeners out there, as you navigate your own family life, remember, you're not alone in this. We're all in this together.
We are.
And by being open to change, communicating honestly, and trying to understand different perspectives, we can build a future where all families can thrive no matter what they look like. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the ever-changing world of family roles. We'll see you next time.